So I had this idea maybe about a month ago that I wanted to make some decorative art that I could hang up in my living room. Large panels that look like leather but were made out of wood. Is it feasible? Can my woodworking skills, over the last 2 years, can actually achieve this? Let's do a small version and let's see if we can pull this off. Hey, before we get started, please like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. This helps the channel grow, and I appreciate every single one of you that take the time to watch these. It means a lot. So like any other experiment that I've done in my shop, I'm going to go ahead and just pick the most expensive pieces of wood in my shop because why not? A lot of people ask me where I get all my materials from. I have one place, Austin over at Deadwood. I have bought a ton of material from them, and the wood is just phenomenal. It is extremely rare, softwoods, hardwoods, extremely fast shipping. I have yet to have any issues with him, and it's been great. This material that I got from Deadwood is maple burl. And there's some special considerations, especially dealing with highly figured wood, and sometimes these things have a lot of exclusions inside of them. So the way you machine them and process the lumber is you got to be really delicate with it, and that's why I use my drum sander. One, to square the tops off, gives me a nice flat edge. If I don't use the drum sander, I'm going to put it in my CNC machine. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put it in my planer. And this gets me the most yield that I can get out of these boards. Because again, they're quite expensive, and you don't want to do a disservice on, wasting material, especially this material. So looking at a kind of a weathered couch effect, I wanted to make sure that the grain structure was tight enough and the small deviations to mimic different textures in the end product. This redwood has a lot of dark and it has a lot of curl, and there's different variations when light hits it. And so I wanted to make sure that I picked the right piece of this piece of lumber that I have to try to get to this weathered texture look that I'm going to machine into the profile of this. And I spent a lot of time, and there was a lot of different portions of the board that I could have used. I went with the lighter because I knew that when I put a finish on it, it was going to turn extremely dark. And again, redwood is not typically dark, but this stuff is dark. There's a lot of dark spots. It has a lot of different variations, especially with the curl that's inside of it. So right now I'm just prepping the material to go into my CNC. And for the larger panels, I'm probably going to upgrade my CNC probably to the Eco 5 Pro. It has the capability of doing large sheets, and I'm going to need additional room, especially if I'm going to scale this to be larger than 4x8 sheets, and a lot of that stuff can be handled. But with this operation, it was very simple. The Eco that I have, I've had this thing for 3 years now, and it's just been a monster. Very minimal upkeep. Everything that I've asked, that I programmed it to do, has done with zero issues. And that builds a lot of confidence with the company. I am a firm believer that this was the best choice that I could have went, especially being a junior woodworker that doesn't have a lot of experience, one in woodworking, two in machining. This was, exactly the place that I needed to go to dip my toes into this type of operation. Another thing that I've been trying to do is kind of experiment with my videography. Even that's what they call it now. Different time lapses, different types of angles for shooting. I've been trying to increase my content as much as I can, but there's a balance between designing manufacturing, post-production, content creation, and there's a balance. And hopefully, I'm kind of balancing those needs with everything else that's going on. That's why the watching the videos and subscribing and even purchasing tools off those Amazon links means so much to keep me going in this business right now. So as far as the machining, I was extremely happy with how this turned out. The redwood again is soft, and there's considerations that you have to do with your speeds and your step over. And I think I'll touch base on this on my Patreon a little bit further and deep dive how this was programmed and some special considerations that you really do need to take into account to try to get the best result that you can get. And with this, there was no sanding. I didn't have to sand any of the machined areas. And that means a lot because that sanding can change the profile extremely fast. And there's a lot of risk. And sometimes it doesn't capture the density when you put a finish on it, and it just looks different from sanded areas between non-sanded areas. So moving on to the box. With this maple burl, I wanted to make sure that I captured the beauty of this wood, specifically the grain structure, appropriately for this keepsake box. That's why I ended up doing the affinity grain around the box, where the grain matched each corner. And to do that, there's special considerations that you're going to go through. One, making sure that you label what your back and what your front facing faces are. You do that because when you put it in the drum sander, you only want to remove material from the original bandsaw cut. You don't want to go any deeper. That keeps the grain structure from moving and not matching with the other board that you just cut off. And that's how you get really tight, book matched grain structure. But this wasn't the final dimension. The overall box, the width of each side, I wanted to be 1/2 of an inch. And to remove the excess material, I just went ahead and removed the material off the backside to get me to 0.5 inches. There's a lot of control, and that's why I love my drum sander so much. So I did process this just a little bit differently than what I would typically normally use. I'm changing out my router system right now, so I went ahead and I cut all the joinery on my table saw with my dado. This was quick and easy, but there was a little bit of risk, especially because maple burl is extremely brittle. This wood is extremely dry, and the chances of getting tear out and blowout is extremely high when dealing with a lot of this. But it ended up working out. Very minimal issues that I couldn't address right on the spot. And again, all these specific tools that I use, all the links are in the description. If you click on them, it'll take you right to Amazon. You can see the pricing, what their functions are. And what's nice is I get a little bit of portion, and that goes right into my funding for the next video, the next set of extremely expensive materials that I try to use. And it really does grow my channel. So any kind of help, definitely, that's the best way to contribute to the channel. So the joints are really tight on this, and if you notice, I left an edge just to make sure that I had a little bit of material there of the redwood. So when the glue squeezed out of the panels. I had a little bit of edge that I could sand and not interfere with the rest of the profile that I cut. Again, I used the Bessie clamps. Those things are awesome. If you don't have a set, you need one. You need two if you have the money. It is extremely fast. Everything was extremely square, and it makes my glue up so much better. Nothing's bowed. Everything is extremely tight around the joints. I love those clamps. What I'm thinking of doing in future content is maybe walking through how to do correct splines. And even if they're not correct, I don't know. There's 100 different ways you can achieve the look of cutting splines. There's multiple different methods. What I really wanted to concentrate on how I process all my material for the keys. And there's a couple keys that I have that the wood species called for, different types of cuts and how you process them because of how brittle they are. These keys were Padoke. It's just I had them lying around, but I knew that was going to be a good contrast between that and the maple. What a lot of people noticed, and I had a couple comments on this, is I don't use hand planes. And there's a couple reasons for that. I have them. I just, with these experiments, I don't want to go too far into depth, but other boxes that are more fine, that I really want a clean edge, those hand planes come out and they're fun to use, but there's a lot of work and a lot of steps and sharpening, and different materials will dull them really fast, and there's a lot of upkeep. All right, so let's get back onto the top of this box. So again, the CNC did exactly what I wanted it to do. And the machining marks that were on top of the profile were extremely tight and pretty much non-existent. So there was no really additional sanding that I had to do. When I put the finish on, that's when you can really start seeing the depth of what this redwood is and why it was such a great choice to mimic this weathered leather texture effect that I really was gunning for. And it's hard to see in this video, but when you take it out in the light and the light hits all these different grain patterns and the different figure that's inside of this, with the curl, with the other dark portions to light and how it flows, it is phenomenal. I was so happy with how this turned out. Extremely pleased. And I'm more than confident that I could scale this and produce larger panels that could either be joined together to create this really nice panel that can, make its way into somebody's living room as a decorative piece of art or a conversation starter. The texture, when I look at it, it looks like leather. I was so happy with the end result. One, that I didn't waste any of my material, and two, that, I think I could scale this. All right, guys, this wraps up the video. Again, I appreciate you making it to the end. Leave me a comment on future content that you would like to see or different ideas. I try to live in the comments. I've been trying to post more in them, but yeah, leave me a comment. Let me know. I appreciate it, guys. Have a great weekend.